So we're going to welcome in now the team from the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. So I'm going to welcome in, just do a bit of switching as all of our heads move around. Shona at the top and Kevin just underneath. Thank you very, very much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
There you
Pleasure
go.
Pleasure to be here, Richard, even virtually.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm going to make sure that everyone can hear each other first and foremost. Can Niall, Marty and Tommy, can you hear Shona and Kevin?
Yeah.
Hey, there we go. There you go. And you can hear them okay as well, Shona and Kevin? There we go. Might as well do the double checks and so forth. Thank you again. Yeah, so much for joining us. So if anyone has any questions or comments or anything for the Edinburgh Fringe team, please just pop them through in the comments, or you can use the hashtag #talkatAT. And Niall, who is our marketing officer, will be having a look at all those little things. So I'll point at Niall in the little box. But Niall will kind of script the different channels for any kind of questions anyone has. It can be quite open. I'm pretty sure you guys are quite open to anything, any kind of questions, or is there things that you want to specifically hear from people?
I guess we can't make any assumptions about what people know or what people don't know, Richard. So we're here with open hearts and open heads and ready to answer whatever's thrown at us. And if things get thrown at us that we can't answer, we'll be honest about that as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So yes, pop them into the comments on Facebook and YouTube if you have anything that wants to be asked, any kind of burning questions or just other thoughts that come up. So obviously this is, if I'm right in remembering, this is the first time the Edinburgh Fringe has not gone ahead. Am I right? Since its beginning, that's a pretty momentous thing to happen. Quite obviously, it was a correct thing, at least from my opinion. Even just from the fact that we don't know what's going to happen. Also artists can't be making things right now in preparation for a launch in August. So I kind of wanted to get an idea of what was it like kind of facing that decision. The Edinburgh Fringe is a national, it's practically like a Great Dane or Knight level in the kind of the culture of the UK and Ireland. So what was it like facing that kind of decision as a team?
Kevin, do you want me to kick off?
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess the first thing to say is we were very minded that the Edinburgh Fringe isn't like any other festival, and we at the Fringe Society aren't the Edinburgh Fringe. We're the small charitable organisation that underpins it with supporting services. So it wasn't our decision to make. The Fringe is owned by so many, 323 venues and over 30,000 performers. And we already had a registration of over 2,000 shows, Kevin, wasn't it?
Yeah. Right.
So it wasn't a simple matter of going, there's a pandemic, cancel the Fringe. There was a whole process and a whole series of conversations and consultations to go through in order to kind of get to that point and to bring people with us rather than us taking a decision that wasn't ours to make. So I think we're very minded that we're just the current custodians of this thing that has been going for 73 years. And with the Fringe, there's always a period of time that you need to take to listen, to talk to people, and to come to the right decisions on a consensus or collective basis. And I guess for us, the absolute critical thing was that those over 2,000 shows who had already paid their registration fees to be part of this year's Fringe, we wanted to be sure that we could get to a point where we could 100% refund those companies and artists. And that's not an easy process because the way the Fringe is funded, it's self-financed, it's not a publicly funded body. So we had a lot of work to do behind the scenes to make sure that we could remain solvent, actually, and also be able to repay all of the artists. So it was a really tough decision, and I think we're still, if you look at our faces, we're still kind of grieving for it because it is momentous and it's such an important thing as a driver for so many careers and opportunities for people, and then all of those kind of micro businesses across Edinburgh and Scotland who thrive on this festival as well.
Yeah, I mean, it must have been absolutely, as you're saying, a shock. it's a massive emotional kind of aspect to this, that you guys are at the helm of this. You feel a huge sense of onus that you got 3,000 other people on your shoulders, kind of thing, 2,000 shows. The emotional kind of weight of that must have been very hard.
Kevin, you can talk the emotional bit.
Yeah, definitely. Just to sort of reiterate and I guess highlight a little bit of what Shona mentioned there about the number of players in the Fringe. A thing that I like to say when we do road shows where we go on the road and talk to people in different parts of the country about how to bring a show to the Fringe, the first thing we like to say is there's no such thing as the Fringe. And that's always very confusing as an opener, but essentially we're not the Fringe. All the shows aren't the Fringe, all the venues aren't the Fringe. Audiences are the Fringe. The media is the Fringe. The producers and promoters and the agents who come to book work on the Fringe, they're all part of the Fringe. So obviously in making any sort of major decision, the canvassing of all of those opinions was really important. So it took quite some time. And I was on the end of fairly few emotional conversations, to be fair. And that was obviously that was very necessary though, in order to get that broad opinion and have all those voices on the table to be part of any direction or any decision that we make.
Yeah, I mean, can you talk us through with how did you kind of canvass that many people? What was the kind of process of that? I can't quite imagine trying to get the opinion and listen to everyone when there's that many stakeholders involved.
Well, certainly, Shona, if you don't, I'll answer.
Go ahead, Ken.
Certainly, what we had at the time was a full team, and we were able to sort of obviously down tools of all the things that we were working on, and try to get those opinions and divvy those up amongst the senior management team and the rest of the team in the areas of interest and the areas of work they would normally do. So the people that they would normally engage with, suddenly this forum of Zoom meetings was exponential, I think, across our core team. So that's basically how we did it. And of course, people are vocal. People get in touch with us many times as the first point of call. So we were getting those opinions coming our way. But then also, I think, making sure that we got opinions from those who weren't as vocal is important as well. So we did have to carve out lots of time, book in lots of half-hour, 15-minute chats with people just to get their opinions and thoughts on what they see happening and where they see themselves as well. That's also really important.
And also, Richard, kind of, structurally we're well set up as well to draw in views and thoughts from across the Fringe constituency too. I mean, this is the board of the Fringe Society is made up of 17 people, the biggest board I've ever worked with, and 12 of those are elected annually from the Fringe membership. So we have our a very representative board. We have a membership, and then we have, I think at last count, Kevin, we have what, 15,000 friends of the Fringe as well. So there are many mechanisms, but as Ben says, Zoom calls 50, 60 people on them at a time were not an abnormal thing over the last month.
No, as everyone discovers Zoom for the first time, certainly its capacity to bring people in has been very helpful. Niall, there's a wee question on Facebook, is that right?
Yes, it's for Shona. Shona, what do you think, this is from Fionnuala Kennedy, what do you think of the response to COVID from Creative Scotland?
I think Creative Scotland have, I think they were very quick off the mark to allow existing cultural organisations who are regularly funded by Creative Scotland, I think they were very quick to say, look, all bets are off. You can repurpose your money towards core costs. I think that was a very healthy position to take at a very early stage, because people were quite literally, and still are, as you will know, worried about their survival, worried about how they were going to pay their mortgage the next day or pay their bills. So I think that decision very, very quickly to say, we are not going to hold you to account for project funding or for your your regular funding, you can repurpose that towards your core costs. I think that has been a lifeline to so many organisations. Then the next step of taking their open project funds and actually repurposing that to be able to support those kind of more freelance artists and individuals who are very exposed in this scenario because they don't have the regular income. And then the lobbying voice they've had within Scottish Government as well, I think, has been really strong to say it's not just good enough to carve up the existing pie to look after everybody. There actually has to be new investment and new income in order to allow people to survive the madness of this, because it's not something any of us have ever seen or experienced before. So I think they've been pretty effective, actually, both in the speed of the decisions they made straight away to help people, and then in that very strong lobbying and advocacy role that they have played since to get more money released into the cultural sector, which, as you know, is always at the bottom of the pile when it comes to a crisis. So
has that been, I mean, is that one of the things that's been most helpful to you, or very helpful to you, as you highlighted, the amount of refunds that have to be given in a very short space of time? Most organisations, I've seen, some responses where people, some organisations have said, we can't refund. We literally, it would destroy us to give out refunds, and other organisations kind of say, no, we'll be processing it. It'll just take time. Was the Creative Scotland's response helpful in that for you in cash flow?
Well, because the Fringe Society is not a core funded organisation in that way, Richard, actually, it was a point of principle to us that we see ourselves as a charitable organisation that is there, that exists to support the constituent parts of the Fringe. First and foremost in that is the artists and performers who give their creativity and give their time to be on our stages every year. So it was an absolute point of principle for us that we would not announce that the Fringe wouldn't go ahead until the point where we knew that we could refund the artists 100%. I can't speak for other people and the decisions they make, but that was absolutely at the core of our thinking. And I mean, the question you ask is a good one, because we are still on a 3-month rolling solvency basis. We absolutely put ourselves as an organisation at massive risk. 75% of our team are furloughed at the minute. It's the only reason we still have them is because the government job retention scheme kicked in so quickly. So we are still very much in survival mode. We don't know that. We know at this stage that we can survive until October. We don't know what life looks like beyond that. So, but I can say in a very positive way that we are getting a hugely empathetic ear from Scottish Government and from the City of Edinburgh Council, because everybody understands the global reputation that the Fringe brings to the city, the role it plays as a driver for the creative economy, and the role that it plays in terms of economic impact for those businesses across the city. So that is well documented, and I think we've had a very positive hearing so far. So yeah. But I have no crystal ball. I don't know what the future brings.
No, it's quite shocking to hear that you're not a core funded organisation within Creative for Creative Scotland. That's quite unusual. Well, to me, that would be quite unusual because of the status of the Edinburgh Fringe. That you are kind of put at risk by not being a core funded organisation. Is that something that might change now with the amount of people kind of rallying behind you? That the government might be able to give you more stability, do you think?
Well, you're touching a subject close to my heart now, Richard. I mean, to be honest, I think this has really highlighted that the whole drive that government has taken with the cultural sector over the last 20, 30 years to be more business-like, to be more economically viable, to be more commercial in your approach and your businesses. And yet, whenever you do, and you, like us, then you become almost 100% reliant on that commercial activity. So, the Fringe Society is funded essentially through registration fees and the commission on ticket sales, and then small amounts of sponsorship, but those are restricted for very specific delivery things. So, and then in a pandemic situation, the very thing that has been your success makes you 100% exposed and vulnerable in this situation. So going forward, you're bang on the money. You have tapped into what my strategy is going to be straight away. That is, this is not a resilient model. A resilient model is a much more mixed economy where there is some level of baseline support of public subsidy. And actually that would allow us to take less out of the wider ecosystem then. Possibly not have to take a commission on ticket fees in future, possibly be able to reduce registration fees for artists. That, to me, that's the direction of travel. I would be wanting to take it in the future, but it's all to be fought for at the minute because so many people are in difficult situations and the public purse will only go so far.
Yeah, I mean, do you think there's a way to kind of push that forward? I mean, I would certainly agree that would be amazing if we could, collectively bargain in a way to say this model has failed us, as I think across the economy, many of the financial models that lots of businesses were under are very clearly have been kind of teetering like a house of cards for a long time. Are you kind of allowed to say how you think we might go forward and kind of lobby together?
I mean, I'd be happy to be part of a rallying cry that shifts us away from that real kind of shove towards commercialism, and accepts that culture and the arts and creativity are such a massive part of our existence as human beings, our social fabric, our cultural fabric, and our economic fabric, that they should be better resourced from the get-go, and better underwritten by public sector investment.
Kevin, whenever you were talking to some of the artists in conversation in the consultation, what were people saying about yes, the difficulty of the Fringe not going ahead, but the kind of the wider kind of ecosystem without the Fringe? What was some of the? I'm not going to describe maybe as pushback, but what were some of the concerns?
I think the time that I was talking to artists was a very crucial time. So I don't think that they were thinking that far ahead at that point. I think they were very much focused on the immediate task of, I need X amount of money very quickly. I've seen a lot of my work for the foreseeable, year dry up in front of me. So I'm talking about artists who don't have a day job. I'm talking about artists who this is their job.
Or their day job's gone as well because everything's closed.
Yeah. So I don't think that they were thinking that far ahead, to be honest. So I can't really answer that question because it wasn't a question we were asking at the time. But really more, what do you see happening? Obviously, if the Fringe is unable to go ahead, where do you see yourselves? And a lot of it was a little upsetting. I have to be honest. But I think as long as we continue to hear that and accept it and understand it. That certainly if we're there later on to help, then that's the position that we want to be in.
Brilliant. Niall, there's another question come in.
Yes, this is from Kate Gilkey. And she asks, is there a danger if art organisations don't produce, understandably prioritising survival/core costs, that audiences and the public won't value them as they disappear from view?
I mean, I can try and answer that, Shona, if you like. I guess that's a possibility. I mean, everything and anything's a possibility, but I think the old saying, you don't miss the water until the well runs dry. I think that might very much be the case here, where yes, there's a lot of online content. There's a lot of things that people can do that is free or virtually free, like Netflix and YouTube, and all sorts of ways to consume culture in one form or another, but I don't think there's anything that quite replaces the live aspect. And I think once that is gone and that starts to sink in and people feel it, I don't see the arts being not being missed. I see them being truly missed, to be honest. I think people see that and feel that hole in their lives. So maybe, but probably not, I guess, is my simple answer.
I guess if I can add to that as well, Kevin, I think when you said at the start you don't miss the thing until it's gone. Normally on a day-to-day basis, a I don't think I'm giving away any secrets, Kevin, but everybody's got an opinion about the Fringe, and it's not always positive. So we get lots of kind of voices and opinions year round about, the Fringe is this and the Fringe is that, and why don't you do this and why don't you do that? And it was really kind of at the moment where that public announcement went out that it couldn't happen this year, that we have felt this kind of absolute outpouring of love, and of missing and shock, and it's definitely been a unique moment in my near 5 years with the Fringe now, that it's only at that moment where you say something can't happen that now people's focus is on when can it come back, how can it come back, how can it come back better. And as Kevin says, I mean, a lot of the calls I've been on, even with people around the world at the moment, there's so much that you can do online and there's so much that you can do with digital tools, but it's definitely not the same experience for theatre, for example. And there is an absolute kind of hunger, I think, for the moment at which the live experience comes back. And I think we're going to see a huge kind of resurgence of people wanting to be laughing together, crying together, experiencing arts in that extraordinary way when you're in a venue with other human beings and you're all reacting to the emotional connection that an artist is making with you from stage.
At the moment, lots of festivals have obviously considered going digital. What are you discussing that? Are you planning for that? Is that something that you can't announce because you're still discussing it? What are you thinking about in the kind of the gap that will be August that was the Fringe? What do you think anything might pop in there?
Kevin, should we do a synchronized eye roll?
Well, yes. I mean, we certainly have, that has been some people are already doing that. Certainly producing houses are doing that. Lots of venues are doing that locally and around the country. And I mean, it's there to obviously to see how it goes at the moment. But again, I don't know fully, like there are so many options at the moment. I think it's difficult for us to say yay or nay on that, and to make any sort of firm commitment, really. I don't know, Shona, if you have anything more to add to that, but I find it's difficult to, we've literally had, I would say probably close to about 80 approaches from different people, all offering similar sorts of platforms, all taking certain amounts of a cut from certain things, and all varying models. And obviously the Fringe is, the Fringe itself is in the way the venues operate, the way shows operate. There's varying models in there, and there's a big misconception that online is free for people as well. And I think that's a hurdle that's really difficult to get over. And I wouldn't want to see artists put into that position as well. So I think it's something that we really, really have to enter the arena with lots of knowledge on before we could jump into anything.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right, Kevin. I would call it, we're in a conversational process about all of that at the moment. And I guess, again, the unique nature of the Fringe and the Fringe Society, in that neither Kevin or I are involved in curating or programming or selecting work for the Fringe. So it's not within our gift to decide that it should go virtual or that it should go online, but we're here to support those venues and companies who've already decided to go into that space. And from some of those, we've heard that it has worked as a short-term fix and a short-term call to action and a short-term method for raising donations or funds towards some of those venues who are very vulnerable. But I don't know that any of them see it as a long-term solution. And certainly for us, we'd only ever want to be able to kind of go into that arena if there was a way that it could be done fairly, and where artists were getting properly remunerated for their work. And that's where it always kind of seems to unravel for me, how to monetize that so that artists actually get paid for the work that they're doing. But it's an ongoing conversation, and there's definitely aspects of what we do. So, for example, the support that we give to the arts industry, every year we have around 1,400 programmers and curators who come from around the world, to select work for their own venues or their own festivals from the Fringe. And we can absolutely see how we can use the digital platform to still connect those global promoters to work that's shown on the Fringe. So it'll be more specific areas like that we'll put our energies and efforts into, where we genuinely feel that the digital space adds value to companies and to their work. But the rest of it is an ongoing conversation at the minute. And as Kevin says, we wouldn't dive into something unless we really understood it and really understood how it was going to make sense and add value in the Fringe context.
Yeah, as you say, it's not going to replace the feeling of being live in a room. So there's certainly questions over whether it needs to be, go online, other than, as you've mentioned, companies using it as a survival mode or a chance to somehow recoup some income through donations or through video on demand. I'm kind of wondering whether, because everything's shut down, we have been sort of forced to look at online in a more serious way than maybe before it was considered. Do you think the fact that there isn't, I'm kind of getting at that, does it create the space to have a conversation about what online can be? Because the possibilities of the reach of it are obviously huge. The idea that the Edinburgh Fringe is a UK festival where acts from across the world can come in and build an audience. And the idea that actually you could, as an artist from Scunthorpe or from Belfast or from anywhere, you can come up and do a show at the Fringe and then go to the Soho or go to the Traverse. So you can be picked up. The idea that an online element could expand that idea of an artist's audience to global proportions. It's interesting. I'm wondering, is the gap of the festival and the other kind of live moments at the moment allows that conversation to breathe a bit, maybe?
I think you're exactly right, Richard, and that's the moment we're taking. A real moment to breathe with it. We've had, I'm sure, 20 conversations with different broadcasters and different platforms already. So we're building a picture of what might work, but we're not there yet. There's a lot more conversations to be had. Kevin, it might be useful for you to talk about the Fringe cast example of something that has really worked for us.
Yeah, definitely. So earlier on, I touched on the work that me and my team do to talk about how to bring a show to the Fringe, and we sort of broached our way into that online live world using technology that we'd never had before, and starting new ways of engaging with people, and obviously the environmental aspect of that was a huge sort of driver to allow us to reach more people without having to travel and obviously do detriment to the environment while trying to do that. So opening up that realm has certainly allowed us to understand it a lot more. And certainly I think in terms of who you're trying to reach, what we've discovered with that is, if you're doing something online, I think a lot of times the approach is a scattergun approach. It's a big announcement. Look at us, we're online, come and look at us. But it doesn't really, you have to do your marketing about that really, really targetedly. So you're looking for, what is this for and who wants it, and go after those people and let them know that it's there. So that's what we found in that, we could usually put on our website and in our email bulletins that we're coming to London for the afternoon, and come and meet us and talk to us about how to bring a show to the Fringe. And if we're doing that live, people pick up on that and book in a space for themselves and everything really quickly. But when we started doing it online, we noticed that we really started to have to work together with a lot of our sort of associates and alumni and other theatre groups that are based in London to get the word out to their shows and their artists and the people in their network. So the online focus has to be very finite rather than that scattergun approach. I think we found to work best anyway. Yeah, no,
I would completely agree. It's just exactly as like building a show. We have to, one of the approaches to building a show is, who you're talking to, who you're talking at, and what you're talking about. And there's lovely kind of parallels, but I would completely agree. Niall, we've got another comment come in from someone we had before the show.
Where are you seeing this, Richard?
Oh no, before the show, if someone sent that to you.
Yes, this is from Colin Rice, and he just asked. Obviously, like you're still reeling, like lots of people are from just the Fringe being cancelled. But he was just asking how are you motivating yourself, or how are you just keeping spirits up, planning for planning now, planning ahead.
The keeping spirits up one is a good question. Funny, Kevin and I were on a Zoom together earlier and talking about this and saying it's been like a roller coaster. One day you're kind of, yes, I can take on the world. I can see where we're going. This is all clear and sorted. And then the next day you're just like, holy shit, we can't socialize with each other. Our pubs are closed, our shops are closed. This is freaking weird. It's not normal, and it kind of hits you again like a sledgehammer. So it's like one day up, one day down. And I think for us at least, you have to understand that people who work at the Fringe Society are there because they absolutely love it and they want to be there. So at least for people like Kevin and myself and the small core team we still have, we're just busting a gut and completely focused on what we can do survival wise now, what we can do to stabilize ourselves, and what we can do to reshape the Fringe and the Fringe Society going forward. And there's a huge opportunity and an excitement in that. The ones I feel sorry for are the ones who are furloughed, because they all want to be in work. They really want to be part of the solution and part of the kind of going forward. So to be honest, I think for we have roller coaster days. We're the ones in the better position, because trying to kind of structure your days when you're literally at home all day with no job to do, I think is a much bigger challenge for people, and certainly for our team.
Tommy, you had a question?
Yeah, just to expand, we kind of touched on it earlier, but I think it's fascinating. Obviously, with you guys, I'm sure you're still processing what's been going on this year, but are there any other changes that you have been thinking about, like things that you would like to see in the next Fringe whenever it does return? And do you think it will be different, or is there certain things that you want to, before it does come back, that you would like to see change or implemented?
Kevin, I'm looking to you first.
Yeah. It's a difficult one. I don't know if we're quite there yet. And I know that's kind of a non-answer. But Shona might have more ideas. But at the moment, I think we're still, as you say, reeling slightly, and still canvassing opinions and still looking for ideas from other people. So I think initially, I think the idea, oh no, the Fringe isn't happening, and what are we going to do about that? I think we're still in that bubble, I think, at the moment. In terms of like massive changes or what we'd like to see in the future, I think we are not. I mean, what we would like to see, I guess, is one aspect of it, but I think it's more about the question of what does the rest of the Fringe constituency want to see, because we're not the directors of the Fringe. We don't direct what happens. So I guess what we would like to see happen is an aspect of that, and trying to support other people in what they want to do is really our main focus and our main remit.
Is that going to be... No, go ahead, Charlotte.
I guess... a lot of this work we had done already in the 70th anniversary back in 2017, where we did a kind of massive call out to the Fringe constituency to tell us what they'd like to see for the festival going forward. And some of those things, I think, Kevin, still hold true. Like, we were already kind of doing huge strides on trying to reduce our carbon emissions and our environmental footprint. We have real ambitions for it to be the greenest festival ever, and still had a way to go, obviously, but that's more than ever something that we would have in our sights. Things like affordability of the Fringe. I mean, I think both of us were drawn to it because it's an open access festival and drawn to that kind of cultural democracy that underpins it. But then whenever you scratch the surface of that, well, the cost of accommodation in Edinburgh can be a barrier to that access. So that was something that we had really actively been working on. And actually, it's something I see as an opportunity arising out of all of this. When you see the hospitality sector and hotels and accommodation providers being some of the ones at the front line of the impact of all of this, I think there may be a different dispensation when we come out of it, that that perhaps we can create a fairer world in terms of costing and prices. And so I have great optimism about some of those things that we have not liked about the landscape that's developed around the festival, and the barriers and the challenges. And I think there's a real opportunity now to break some of those down and to get a fresh start, if you like, with some new parameters around things where people can't be greedy bastards. Oh shit. Sorry, Kevin, I apologize.
Is that so? 2021 will be what it is, essentially. But you've got the groundwork already kind of in the bag for the direction of where to go.
Yeah.
But still a lot of conversations and a lot of listening to happen before we would, we're still, as Kevin said, in part survival mode, part trying to stabilize mode. And the big piece of work that has still to be done is what does the future look like, and what does that wider constituency want the future to look like. And so we're going to be doing a lot of listening over the next while.
Yeah, you don't make a decision when you're reeling from a kick in the gut. So yeah, that's brilliant. Tommy, Niall, or Marty, any questions for Shona and Kevin? Oh, I think we've lost Niall's audio. Oh. Oh yeah, we have lost Niall's audio. No, Niall's talking, so he's obviously got a fantastic question, but can't ask it. I'm going to just double check online because Niall can't tell me anything. So, but thank you so much for joining us. It's been fantastic to kind of get to talk to you. It's one of those kind of rare, nice things that the quarantine has kind of given us the time almost. I know you guys are very available normally, but you've actually got a little bit maybe extra time for your 7th Zoom call of the day to be to us this time. So thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, Richard. Thanks, everybody.